back to another episode of Kapow, which almost didn't happen.
It's true.
I'm Sonya, the regular Sonya, not the evil one who ran around a supermarket with a hockey stick yelling out, "I'm Sonya, I am the Lizard Queen!"
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm Al, and again, the real Al, not the evil copy of me that mooned a police station while yelling at, "I'm Al, how's my driving?" and then running off into the night. No, I'm the Al who comes to Kings Comics every week and reviews things.
Yes, and how we explain those particular situations to the police is a whole other story.
Long story.
But we are here now and we are ready to do our thing.
Absolutely. This week, we are revisiting some titles that we've looked at before to see how the trade paperbacks have developed since we looked at the first issues. There's Young Avengers, Style Over Substance, Talon, Scourge of the Owls, and East of West Volume 1.
And of course, Ray will be joining us to review an anime called Tsuritama.
Oh wait, Ray's here.
Yeah.
I thought he was still out hunting down those two Ray clones.
Now you build a trap for them. Classic box held up with a stick.
Nice.
You put a beer can and a block of tofu under it. Caught both at once.
Okay, cool. Wait,
Yeah.
wait. What's he gonna do with them now?
He said he was going to make a band.
A bet. Okay, that is gonna suck.
It's going to be interesting.
Oh, it's going to suck.
It's going to suck. Young Avengers is one of the Marvel Now titles that has generated a lot of buzz around it, most likely due to the fact that it's very different in tone to any of the other current titles.
Yeah, I think one reason for that is that the roster's entirely made up of teenagers.
Yeah.
Now, that in and of itself, obviously not new. We get a whole bunch of fresh-faced, superpowered adolescents every time the X-Men bring in a new batch. But in this case, they're going it alone, completely sans parental supervision.
Yes, indeed, and writer Kieran Gillen has a very neat way of justifying that. But before we get into that, a little bit of context. The team consists of 6 members: Wiccan, Hulkling, Miss America, Kate Bishop, aka Hawkeye, Nova, formerly Marvel Boy, and Kid Loki. I think that one of the strengths of this book is that while it can be helpful to know the backstories of these characters, it's not essential for this story.
Yeah, and a good thing too, because the action is pretty breakneck. After Wiccan makes the awful decision of using his reality-altering powers to bring his boyfriend's mother back from the dead.
Truly a bad decision.
Well, yes it is, because it turns out that what he's actually done is bring through a parasitic entity which resurrects all of their dead parents as evil copies that essentially want to drain the life out of them.
Now, when we looked at the first issue of Young Avengers, we noticed a few pacing issues, especially when it came to Wiccan and Hulkling. There was a lot of drawn-out pages about their relationship, but that seems to have fallen away as we've gone deeper into the story.
Yeah, I agree. My fears that this series would be too much about who was hooking up with who seem to have been unfounded, thankfully. I mean, there's certainly a very clear attempt to make this a young, modern story with topical references to Twitter and TV shows, but it never seems like Gillen's trying too hard to make this relevant.
No, and the art has remained stellar throughout. Jamie McKelvey and Mike Norton match the pace of this story with frantic, engaging visuals and incredibly fun fight scenes. There's real impact to the hits, and every page has a rich and appropriate colour palette, which we can thank Matthew Wilson for.
See, I don't know. For me, I did have a bit of an issue with some of the artwork. There's been a lot made of the music video style splash pages, and while those are sometimes quite effective, there are other times that I was irritated by the lack of through line in them. I found some of them confusing because there was no guide for the eye.
Yeah, look, I can see what you're saying, but I think for me that confusion was part of the whole point. I mean, it's the middle of a crazy fight scene, there's a lot going on, and if it takes you a few extra seconds to kind of figure it all out, that's not such a bad thing in my book. I'm going to stick with my original verdict on this, and I'm giving it a buy.
Okay, well, I think we're going to need to agree to disagree on the artwork there, because some of that did bug me a bit. But I am still giving it a buy as well.
Excellent.
Mainly because of Kid Loki.
Ah, yes.
Now, he is by far and away my favourite character. Pushed me over from a borrow into a buy. He manages to be both comic relief and potential villain at the same time. So, as long as Gillen keeps developing his character, I'm in for the long haul.
I've got to say that the Court of Owls is one of the coolest things to come out of the New 52 so far. And so seeing Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV plot a spin-off, very excited Sonya here.
Absolutely. I mean, having an elite syndicate who've been running things in Gotham behind the scenes, that's already cool. But then you layer on a group of undead assassins, and that's an awesome setup.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Owls are popping up in the regular Bat titles, but I think they deserve more focus. And that is where Talon comes in.
Volume 1 of Talon, Scourge of the Owls, which is scripted by Tynion, introduces us to the one man who escaped from the court, Calvin Rose. Unlike the other Talons, which mainly come from acrobatic backgrounds, Calvin has a very specialised talent. He is an escape artist.
Yeah, which kind of makes you wonder why they never realised he was going to leg it.
Ah, see, because owls are far-sighted, so they can't see what's happening under their noses.
Right, because they're all kind of squirrel. Luckily, he did his disappearing act before he underwent death and resurrection at the hands of the court. But unluckily, this does mean that he's at a slight disadvantage when he starts facing off with Talons who can't be killed and can only be incapacitated by extreme cold.
Although this volume traces the first arc of Calvin's return to Gotham after years running from the court, it feels like it's set up for a much larger story, but that's not to say that it's uneventful.
Oh, by no means. There's pretty much wall-to-wall action, along with a passel of new characters, my favourite of which being the Butcher of Gotham, a Talon that the court put into cold storage during the 1860s because he was too psychotically uncontrollable. That guy is nightmare material.
And Gear March does justice to him on the artwork. He looks truly terrifying. In fact, the art is quite good overall. Now, I haven't always liked March's artwork, especially his stint on Catwoman, but there are some great moments in this volume.
Absolutely. I think sometimes some of the faces do get a little bit distorted, but I think there's good framing. I think the lines of the bodies as they fly through the air, which there's a lot of.
There's a lot of that.
That looks great, so I'm going to give this one a buy.
Yeah, this first volume gives a whole new angle on Gotham, and I'm giving it a buy as well. It's so much fun to read, and I hope that the series does continue because Volume 1 ends on a killer cliffhanger.
Enoshima Dawn!
Hey Ray,
Hey Sonya,
what you doing?
I'm luring.
Who? Are you, or what are you luring?
You'll see.
Okay, so why don't you just put the rod aside for the moment and we'll get on with this week's review, yeah?
Alright, but if I get a bite, then I'm going to have to cancel
Ray!
this review and...
Come on. It's okay.
Alright. Tsuritama is a shonen anime TV series which aired in 2012. It's been released on DVD and Blu-ray thanks to Hanabi, and Sonya and I thought we'd take a closer look because this anime is deceptive. The outcast Yuki Sanada is a high school student living with his grandmother, a woman whose career requires frequent relocation, which in turn prevents Yuki from establishing any real relationships. The latest transfer is to the island of Enoshima, where Yuki is confronted by Haru, a zealous transfer student wielding a magical water gun, claiming to be an alien who not only seeks Yuki's friendship, but assistance to save the planet. Now, there's lots of different kinds of fish stories, from the one that got away to the best catch ever, but whichever way the currents of life take our duo, this trip may turn out to be the biggest whopper ever.
Now don't judge this one by its cover.
I know, right? I should have known better. I looked at the cover and I just pushed it aside. But under closer inspection, there's a really solid team behind Tsuritama, led by director Kenji Nakamura, and the voice cast alone are highly experienced and they deliver some excellent performances.
Yeah, they really do. It's quite a charming little series, really, and it gives it a really unique look on developing relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And the joy of fishing is not so much about the physical act itself, but experiencing those moments in between. So this epoch of time, if you like, creates a perfect platform for the drama to take place. So this is essentially where the real heart of Tsuritama shines, whereby a group of misunderstood outcasts bond together over the hobby of fishing to understand the true meaning of friendship. And as we venture deeper into the series, we're met with two more major characters. Natsuki, the fishing prince, a prize-winning competitive fisherman who reluctantly teaches Yuki and Haru to fish.
And Akira, a mysterious and stoic Indian man who's always accompanied by his duck named Tapioca. He and his servants spy on Haru under orders of the mysterious organization called DUCK, an acronym for Defensive Universal Confidential Keepers.
Bizarre? Yes, but it's fun, and it looks good too. The animation is smooth, the character designs are good, and the story is visually well told thanks to Nakamura. And the island landscape of Enoshima is wonderfully serene. It looks so inviting.
Yeah, like a place that I'd like to visit on the weekend. It's full of summer colours and interesting architecture, and it's nice to get out of the futuristic urban environments for a change. So what did you think of the characters, Ray?
Well, they're interesting, and that's why I want to invest in them. Although quirkier, I'd liken them to the characters from Kids on the Slope. I do have one issue though, and that's with Akira. I thought that given he is Indian, I'd have preferred a greater difference between his skin color and facial construct to that of the others. It was evident, and I know I'm being picky, but simply giving him a turban was a bit of a bland choice in my opinion. That said, I like that the characters didn't feel too sorry for themselves. I know we've mentioned this before, but...
There is nothing worse than a self-pitying inner monologue.
Yes, that's right. But the characters are well thought out, and the dialogue is good as well. It's good writing. It doesn't drag on. And also the characters, the relationships reveal themselves quite gracefully over time, so that when you're looking back, even from episode to episode, you can see the nice subtle growth in each of the characters as they move along through the series, which is nice.
It is, and it's really easy to watch this. I mean, you can chew through 12 episodes in a weekend, really.
Easily, yep.
And Tsuritama has heart, a lot of heart, which is something I know that you'd appreciate. Right?
Yep, absolutely. I like my layers.
Yes.
Yes. And I also like the soundtrack as well. I thought that the score was very solid and a very catchy intro by Fuji Fabric. They're a Japanese rock band who are influenced by jazz and disco, so it's pretty funky stuff.
It is. Look, I really loved this. I thought it was such a charming and unique little story. Haru was probably my favourite character because he's just weird and quirky and wonderful.
Yeah.
I like it so much, I'm going to give it a buy.
Whoa, all right, great. Well, I'm on board with that. I'm going to give it a borrow. I don't think it's an instant smash hit, but I think it will grow on fans.
Yeah.
But those of you who do choose to roll the dice, I'm pretty sure you'll follow it through to the end because it's a pretty fun ride.
It is. So have you caught anything yet?
No. But it's out there.
What's out there?
We'll see. You'll see.
I don't see anything, Ray.
You'll see.
If Jonathan Hickman's East of West were a meal, it would be a heaped plate of science fiction with a side order of the supernatural and maybe a little religious iconography for dessert.
That, my friend, is a very hearty meal.
Isn't it though? A little bit too hearty at times, if I'm honest. For as good as this book can be, it can also be a bit overwhelming.
True enough there, sir. We're confronted with a world that split off from our own when a comet hit the Earth during the American Civil War, and when three men handed down an apocalyptic prophecy known only as the Message.
But this isn't just an abstract prophecy of the end times. This is a series of steps for bringing about the apocalypse, as carried out by a group called the Chosen, and by 4 very real horsemen of the apocalypse.
Well, 3 horsemen, as it turns out, because Death has quit his job after falling in love, leaving famine, war, and conquest just a little bit ticked off.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, it's fairly straightforward. But then you have the contrast between the Old West frontier and the super advanced towers of the powerful. You have robot horses that shoot laser beams out of their neck. You have politics and superstition and sentient eyeballs. For me, this book's strength can also be its weakness. I mean, there's just so much going on.
Well, that's to be expected with a Hickman title.
Yeah.
I mean, this is high-end sci-fi with a lot of facets to it, and I'm really glad that I chose to read it as a trade rather than following issue by issue, because it gave me the time to really get in and enjoy the mad, hectic pace of it all.
Okay, but I felt it was a bit rushed. I mean, what's there is great, but it feels like it takes place over a compressed amount of time.
Sure.
I mean, for example, Death finding his lost love. That would have had more impact if it had taken a bit longer. We would have gotten more context. I mean, again, what's there is great, even if it is a bit hectic. And it looks fantastic throughout.
Yes, now I'm glad that you said that, because for me, Nick Dragotta's artwork almost steals the show here. The artwork is as beautiful as it is brutal, with both gorgeous vistas and vicious violence rendered with equal skill. Where the plot can feel overwhelming, the visuals are always clear and incredibly effective. I'm going to wait for the trade before I keep reading, but I am certainly going to keep reading this. It's a buy from me.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you there. As you say, it does look amazing, and when it comes right down to it, I would much rather a writer's reach exceed his grasp than to read something without ambition. Now, this is a very ambitious book, and I am giving it a buy. If you're looking for some groundbreaking sci-fi, you could do a lot worse than East of West.
Okay guys, we're gonna wrap up before Ray and the Raytones start up another round of close part harmonies, accompanied only by a tambourine. I mean, who gave him the tambourine?
Well, I didn't. I thought you did.
No, of course not.
You know what, though? I actually thought their version of Circle of Life wasn't that bad.
Yeah, until Ray 3 got all weird and said that the Lion King perpetuates negative stereotypes on hyenas.
Yeah, no, he's a bit weird, that guy.
Well, look, they're all a bit weird, but you know what? Ray's one of us.
Yes, he is,
Yeah.
and he'll be back next week, along with us for more comics, cartoons, and collectibles, and hopefully without the Raytones sharing their version of fat-bottomed girls.
Yeah, see, I don't know why Ray 3 doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever understand anything about any of them.
No.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.